Welcome to McDougall. On today's show, the doctor will present living proof that you can deal successfully with rheumatoid arthritis. Hello, I'm Wayne Judd. And now America's one-man health plan, Dr. John.
One-man health plan.
One-man health plan.
That must take care of mental and emotional problems, too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that makes me wonder if people are going to be upset with me for cutting down on the use of things like Prozac and the other antidepressants that are so popular.
They are indeed, aren't they?
If I could only help people solve that aspect.
But the sense in which you're the one-man health plan, John, is that you believe in wellness. You believe that people should stay well and not get sick, and that's the best health plan of all, isn't it?
Is that a big leap of faith? I mean, to think that an individual is supposed to be healthy, that happens to be the God-given plan, that folks are supposed to be looking good, feeling good, and functioning well.
Sin and all, we're all supposed to suffer, aren't we?
Well, it's some people's philosophy,
Something
but
like
looking around this country, you'd think that the normal state of things was being fat, being sick, and feeling bad, and being depressed, too. You know, in our society, we have a tremendous amount of depression, and doctors say that a good share of the illness is really mental. The physical illness is really mental, and depression is one of those things, and it's not beyond a patient's control to deal with depression. You can deal with depression if you deal with some very basic things.
Okay, now, you're suggesting that depression actually brings physical illness. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, it can. No question about it.
Or are we just talking about depression as a separate item
Well, you
here?
can talk about it either way. The thing is it is often self-induced and often can be limited or gotten rid of completely by simple changes in the way you deal with things, very tangible things. You know, I'm that kind of guy. I don't share with you things that you have to just believe in or have faith in. I share with you things that you can practically do. If you do A and B, you're going to get C, and I want to share with you some things in terms of depression.
Let's hear it.
Exercise. Exercise has been shown to relieve mild depression and anxiety. It releases substances in the nervous system known as endorphins.
Even if you hate exercise?
If you do it, it doesn't matter. I don't care what you think about it while you're doing it.
Because some of us hate exercise.
The important thing is that you're out there doing it and you're making these chemical changes.
Okay.
The other thing is what you eat changes the neurochemistry. And this is work that comes out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where they feed people different kinds of diets, and they find that their neurotransmitters, which are chemicals that send the signals among the brain pathways, the neurotransmitters change. And so you eat a high carbohydrate diet, in other words, a diet with lots of plant foods, and the consequence is you make lots of serotonin in the nervous system, which relieves depression. But here's the big one for you: sleep control. Too much sleep is depressogenic. And think about it, on one of those days, Wayne, when a Saturday or something, when you slept in, didn't you feel sluggish and blue and a little down for that day?
Yes, indeed. You're right about that.
You notice that. You know, they take people who are severely depressed, and this is in the psychiatry journal, severely depressed, ready to kill themselves, and they limit their sleep. They often keep them up for the whole night, and by the next day, nearly 70% of them are completely relieved of their depression. Now, you can take that information and you can control your life by changing your sleeping patterns. We're taught we need 8, 10, and more hours of sleep a night. That's misinformation.
So we're sleeping too much.
Too much. That kind of excess sleep will make you depressed. You limit it to what an adult really needs, which is 5, 6, 7 hours, and you can change your mood overnight. And that's exciting information that you can take to the bank.
All right.
And we'll be back with a story about arthritis with Maureen Fernandez.
Give your children a brighter future. Watch Hello Channel.
When I went to medical school, I was taught diet had nothing to do with arthritis. Even the Arthritis Foundation sent out brochures that stated the truth about arthritis. Diet has nothing to do with the cause or cure. And as a training doctor, the subject was closed for me. And when that kind of information is distributed to doctors around the country, they say, well, the experts have done the research, everything's settled, we don't have to look at it anymore, and a patient comes in and says, hey, doc, you know, I think some of the foods I'm eating are making my joints hurt. We dismiss the patient. And so the poor doctors around the country, to think nothing of the poor patients, don't stand a chance when it comes to arthritis and helping people because of misinformation that is propagated by, I'm sure, well-meaning people. You know, I went and looked at the literature in the library to find out where the support came for the idea that diet had nothing to do with arthritis. I came up empty-handed. And that was nearly 20 years ago, empty-handed, and I've followed the literature carefully ever since, and still, I'm waiting for the article where they study and show that diet has nothing to do with arthritis. As a matter of fact, the studies done are overwhelming, showing that, that arthritis, including serious arthritis like rheumatoid arthritis, can be dramatically improved, in fact, even cured by a change in diet. And Maureen Fernandez, when did you have rheumatoid arthritis?
I came down with it about 3 years ago, and it was pretty devastating.
As an adult?
Yes, yes.
And you were perfectly well before that?
Perfectly well. It didn't come on slowly at all. I just woke up one morning and my hand was like a claw.
Oh, my.
Exactly like this, all swollen.
Well, it must have been terrifying.
Well, to say the least,
Oh,
it's such an insidious disease that, you know, it brings a lot of fear on. And the more fear you have, it magnifies the problem. But anyway, I did go to a doctor who suspected it was that and was sent to the specialist, a rheumatologist, and who finally told me, I'm sorry to tell you that you do have rheumatoid arthritis, and that today we have these drugs that we could save you from the crippling effects. And that was the most they can do. And
save you from the crippling effects?
That was exactly that. And I remember feeling so scared. I'd never known what fear meant before as I sat there. And I said, Doctor, couldn't you give me a little more hope than that? I understand some people go into remission. And she just looked at me and she said no. And since my husband was a vegetarian and was very much into good eating and right lifestyle, could do anything, I said, what about diet? Couldn't diet help me? And her exact words were, there is no clinical proof that diet helps arthritis. It is chronic, and that's, you have to learn to deal with it. So I went away, and I can't tell you, by 2 weeks later, I couldn't get out of bed because the knees didn't work. You'd have to sort of, it would take all day to be thawed out, so to speak, to be able to be mobile again. And then my husband came home one day and he said, I heard John McDougall. And I said, oh, so who's John McDougall? And he said, well, all those things I've always told you. Now here's an MD expounding on this. So for my birthday, 2 weeks later, I got your book. And I read it. And I thought, and it was the first time I had hope. I said, I believe. I know that I can do something for myself because nobody else is going to do it, obviously, you know. They're not giving me any hope. And now I was on drugs. And so then I went out when I got on the drugs, and the drugs did help. I was able to move. But I bought a book on drugs, and I started to read what drug I was on and what other drugs I could expect to be on.
Did you read anything that said that this drug is going to modify the disease or is going to prevent the crippling effects?
I don't think I read that.
I don't think you read it either, because the truth of the matter is these are not disease-modifying drugs.
No, no.
And the disability continues at the same rate. They relieve pain, is what they do, and at a price.
Can you sharpen our definition a little bit on arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, for those who may not be familiar? What's the difference? What is it all the same thing?
Arthritis is any pain.
Well, rheumatoid arthritis is systemic. Was that? Actually, I think John should answer that question.
Well, as a patient
because there's
with the
different forms of arthritis, but rheumatoid arthritis is systemic. So if somebody says to you, I have arthritis in the knee, maybe they just have one form. If you have rheumatoid, you have it in every joint of your body, and it could freeze up on you all at the same time.
And when that you literally woke up and it was curled.
That's right. And your toes can do the same thing, and you cannot walk. And I had never known anybody with rheumatoid arthritis, so that all I knew about rheumatoid arthritis was that I would be in a wheelchair like this. That was my feeling.
And the doctor gave you a little other
help? No, he didn't.
No. There's all kinds of arthritis, Wayne. There's if you have any pain in the joint, even if you happen to bump your knuckle and you get pain in the joint, it can be defined as arthritis. But what we do is we categorize certain types of arthritis based upon the findings. And it's really somewhat artificial. The kind of arthritis that Maureen has, or had, is what I call inflammatory arthritis, and it fits into a group like lupus, ankylosing spondylitis, psoriatic arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. And there are lots of inflammation, as she said, and very destructive. And it also affects not only the joints, but often other parts of the body. And so it can be a killer disease. And so she was in very, very big trouble. And on the drugs, do you remember what drugs you were on?
Plaquenil. And I knew, and then Plaquenil did help, and I was able to move around. It made you feel as close to normal. But in the back of my mind all the time is, what happens when Plaquenil stopped working? Then there's cortisone and all the other all the drugs that I thought was so horrible. Plaquenil was the least damaging, I thought, and that one could blind you. So you could imagine what the others said. So I knew that I was going to go to your clinic, and the reason I was going, I never thought you could get rid of arthritis because it's chronic, but I knew that I had to do something for myself, and I had to find another option.
Well, let's leave you as a hopeless woman,
Yes.
suffering arthritis with a whole bunch of drugs, never to get well again,
Right.
and then we'll come back and we'll share a really remarkable story of arthritis and the kind of control that you can have.
Hello, my name is Javier. I'm from Spain. I learned English. So can you. Watch Hello channel.
Maureen Fernandez, a lady who we left a moment ago, hopeless with crippling rheumatoid arthritis on all kinds of medications that she discovered. And I really want to compliment you for taking the time and trouble to look up your medications, to figure out what the benefits, what the risks were. So many patients, they just, yes, doctor, whatever you want, I'll take the medication. I'm sure you know everything about it. That's a dangerous situation both for you and the doctor. And a husband who was a vegetarian, was he a lacto...
Well, I have to give him credit for that because he's the one that never thought drugs can do anything for you.
Oh, he didn't. He was not
No,
supportive.
he was not. He was not a vegan. He learned that from you.
No, but he was at least he knew
Vegetarian.
there was a healthier way to
Exactly,
eat.
right.
And so you were on medication?
Yes, and so I, feeling very normal, but also knowing that every time I try to get off of it, all the symptoms would start coming back. So I knew I wasn't doing anything good for myself. I was just going down the road. So I decided to go visit your clinic.
Okay, well, I want to stop you there. Why would you bother believing me? You never met me. I said to you, and I probably told you when you first came in that rheumatoid arthritis responds to a good diet. Why would you have that kind of faith in somebody you don't know?
Well, my husband helped that. I had listened. I've been married for 30 years, and I had to hear him for 30 years. But and I went through that when my kids were getting vaccinated, and a lot of things he didn't believe in, but we always talked through them. So I was beginning, to believe
And you were
that he was
desperate.
right. And so he was so excited about you. But the way he sold me, he says, "Now this is an MD, and an MD is saying this." So that's really.
You decided to take a leap
right?
of faith.
So when I read your book and all what you said was the things he said and how you learned about when you watched, people and how they deteriorated after they changed their diets and so forth. So I couldn't wait to get out to your clinic. But what I didn't tell you was I had planned at the clinic because I felt the clinic was a safe place. It was a hospital environment.
Yes.
And I knew my drug was a build-up drug, and I was always afraid to get off of it on my own, that I would just stop it when I was there, because if I couldn't get out of bed, where else better than in a hospital, and somebody could fix me.
Yeah.
So I stopped taking that drug the second day I was there after your lectures.
And that's about 15 months ago? Mm-hmm. And so what happened? What happened with your arthritis?
Well, I got in to see you, and I remember what you said to me. You said, "That's not the way I would have done it, Maureen." But
No, I like people to, kind of cautiously do
Yeah,
things. And of
that's
course,
right.
anybody listening, you should change your medications with your doctor's supervision, because
exactly.
you get into problems.
So you did say that to me, but I let that go by. I knew it was a build-up drug, so I wasn't fooling myself that perhaps there was enough left in my body that it was still doing. So I had your nurse call the pharmacy and check out how long it would take for my body to be cleansed of that, and they said about 9 days. So by the 10th day of your clinic, when I was seeing you, I still had this finger couldn't bend at all, but I figured that was nothing. Huh?
Yes.
So I left your clinic and I went home and followed. And I won't even say to the T, John, but I don't eat meat, and I stay off of those dairy products, and now I can do this. And I wake up in the morning just like you and anybody else. And I don't like to say I'm cured. I don't think you're cured of rheumatoid arthritis. I think what I'm doing is taking control of it, and I went back to my rheumatologist, and I thought...
What did he say? What did your rheumatologist say?
Well, it was not the same one. This one was a teacher from Stanford,
Yes.
and he encouraged me to go to you, that one day.
Oh, really? That's great.
And my general practitioner had said, "You talk about McDougall so much, why don't you go?" So she also encouraged me.
So you got some encouragement.
Right.
There are a lot of doctors who,
Right.
not only because diet is becoming a subject that doctors are aware of through their patients, through the medical literature, because a lot of doctors are so frustrated. Can you imagine how, you've told me how much you suffered with the medications, with the pains and so on. Can you imagine how I feel sitting on this side of the desk, having to offer you medications that I know do you more harm than good, having to offer you something that I know is not going to be the cure, and not only do I have to offer that to you, one person, but I got to see 10, 20, 30, 50 people a day with that same kind of discouragement. You wonder why your doctor's depressed? It's because of the fact that, you know, we're built up in a situation where we're supposed to be offering these modern medical miracles, and the truth of the matter is they're few and far between. And when the patient like you, and I'm so excited that your doctors took that positive response, you know.
Oh, my doctor documented it. He said I was the second person, and all he sees is arthritis patients that had gone to diet, the first one being a fireman, that couldn't take drugs because of hepatitis, and the arthritis disappeared. And that's why he encouraged me, because I felt it. You have to believe it. And he documented it, and he's since retired. And now I have a young UCLA doctor, and he just thinks it's wonderful.
He thinks it's great
No
stuff.
drugs. He says, you don't, but I see him every 4 months, and all he says is, no drugs.
Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, I bet he says. Yeah,
that's
sure,
what
that's
he
a
says.
good line.
And they each have your book. I've taken that book down to my doctor's office.
Have you had a chance to talk to other arthritic patients?
No, and that's one of the reasons I didn't, you know, I wasn't very excited about doing this because I was very nervous.
Yeah.
And my husband said, remember how you felt when I first came down with it? I knew nobody with arthritis, and I kept calling around, hoping to talk to somebody to understand the disease. And I think people need to know there's an alternative. And maybe you have to be on the drug, but if you start this lifestyle, you will get weaned off of the drug. I really believe it. But
well, you have done your job very well today. You've shared with people, and I'm sure there are thousands of people with arthritis and hopeless people out there that have benefited from your effort. I want to thank you for overcoming your fear and showing the courage, Maureen.
Thank you, John.
You really got a positive message out there.
Much.
Thank you very much for being with us. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Hello. The job market is a competitive place. In today's economy, extra skills mean a better job for you. Speaking English is the skill you need for greater opportunity, more money, and a brighter future. Introducing Hello Channel, an exciting new television channel that teaches English as you watch TV. There's something for everyone, and the more you watch, the faster you'll learn. All you have to do is say hello.
And welcome back. So what did you think about that?
Well, I'm angry. I'm sorry, but I'm angry. I'm pleased. It's nice to know that we have these exciting things happening. But, John, I don't even know who to be angry at yet, and this probably isn't the place to process it, but I have relatives my age who are just totally crippled up with this business, and nobody's out there helping them.
No, they're trying to. You know, you really have to understand the medical business, the doctors are trying to do it. They're trying to help, but the tools aren't there because in medical school we don't get an education on diet. The literature that's out there is not as extensive as it ought to be. There are multiple case studies. There's even a study in the October 1991 issue of The Lancet. It's the kind of study doctors would like to look at, where they took a control group of patients with rheumatoid arthritis, compared them with an experimental group. The experimental group, they put them on a diet with very low fat, no animal products. And you know, in 1 week, those people on the control diet, all of them showed objective and subjective benefits. Their joints became more mobile, less pain, less swelling. Their sedimentation rates, which is a laboratory way of measuring inflammation, went down dramatically in 1 week, all the patients. And so there are studies out there, Wayne, but they're not extensive enough.
Well, I'm glad they're studying, but while they're studying...
Wait a minute. I don't want you to be glad they're studying. I said there are studies out there, but there are not enough studies out there. And the reason is because there's no financial incentive to do it. And so the sad situation is the information...
Financial incentive? What does that mean in this context? People are suffering and dying, John.
Well, I'm sorry, it's dollars and cents. If we were talking, Wayne, about a pill that we could feed people, process, patent, and make money off of, then the studies would be extensive and the research would be funded tremendously, but it's not. Let me tell you, it goes further than that. It's just more than money, it's ego also. There's a doctor, he's on the East Coast now, who wrote articles in Arthritis and Rheumatism on cure of rheumatoid arthritis by taking people off dairy products. Now, I tracked this fella down because I wanted to have him on my radio show one time, and I called him up and I said, "Doctor," and we won't bother with his name, I said, "I'm so excited about your research. You know, you show you can cure people with rheumatoid arthritis by taking dairy out of their diet." He says, "I don't want to talk about that." I said, what do you mean you want to talk about that? He says, look, he says, I got this new job as the head of internal medicine at this university. He says, that's behind me. I don't want to talk about that anymore. I said, why not?
Oh, my.
He says, real doctors don't talk about food. I said, well, what do real doctors talk about? He says, biochemistry and viruses.
See, well, that makes my dilemma even worse, because
See,
I was going to say...
high-tech, you know, sexy type...
See, I'm not interested in blaming anyone. I have no interest at all in blaming anyone. I just want a solution. But if you say someone comes that close and then turns his back for a prominent position, then there's something wrong there, don't you think?
Well, I think what's wrong is it's human nature. I think doctors are people just like everybody else, and we're motivated by such things, even though there is that motivation of doing good for our fellow human being. That will win out, I believe. And I also believe...
I hope so.
I also believe, Wayne, that's going to win out because people are finding out the truth. And they're making changes on their own. And like the story of Maureen that we just heard, I mean, that's better than 10 scientific articles to find somebody who not only got well, but she follows a program that she finds simple. And she'd never look back. She enjoys it tremendously.
But people sometimes think that people who do that just got lucky.
Well, she didn't just get lucky. You know, the evidence is overwhelming. It should convince any scientist. For example, if you look around the world, this is how a lot of this research starts. You look around the world and you see where arthritis is common and where it's rare. And we're talking about rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, ankylosing spondylitis, and psoriatic arthritis. And these diseases are non-existent, rare, or they're not deforming in their course in places like rural Africa, Asian countries like China or Japan. And you take these Africans, these Asian people, and you move them to Europe or to the United States, where they, of course, change their diet, and it becomes epidemic.
Yeah.
And so they have all these diseases. So that's the first indication that these diseases are not due to race.
Well, I think that's part of the reason it's difficult to ascribe blame to anyone on this, because, in fact, you know, we're as individuals, we're responsible. I'm responsible for what I sit down and eat, and I eat the wrong things.
Yeah,
you keep telling me to
you're
change.
becoming informed,
Oh,
and that's
yes.
the important.
Well,
the first thing is information, and the second, of course, is motivation. And we want all of our viewers to get motivation from positive things. We don't want them to get rheumatoid arthritis like
before
Maureen,
they get sick. Before they get sick.
To be stimulated, right? We want them to get good information. That's why we want to encourage them to stay tuned and review us, so that
and that's why you're a one-man health plan, John.
Oh,
Wellness.
I like that a lot. One-man health plan. Well, that was an exciting story with Maureen.
It was a great story.
And arthritis is only one of the problems that people have control over.
That's right.
Until next time, stay healthy and happy. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.